Good afternoon and welcome to the Albuquerque Center for Spiritual Living. I am Reverend Amani Malaika, and I am wildly happy to have you here. For those of you online, I am wildly happy that you are here. I would love for everybody to just take a look around, find a face that's unfamiliar to you, and shoot your best shiny smile. Wonderful. We have a lot of new faces in the house today, and it's exciting to have you all with us. We have a really special day planned for you. I'm going to share with you that as I had the, realization that tomorrow was MLK and inauguration, I literally was like, what in the actual heck? Not what I said in my own mind, though. And I immediately called one of my best sister friends, and I was like, I don't know, what we gonna do? What we doing? And she said, I got a few things to say, can I come and talk? And I said, well, yes, Kathy McGill, yes, you can. You can come and talk to my people, because we need you. And so I am really, really grateful that I am well supported by Cathryn McGill today. She will be giving the message. And there was a little extra special treat that she doesn't know about. Well, she sort of kind of knows about. But if you know Cathryn McGill, who is the founder of the New Mexico Black Leadership Council, you may also know her as an incredible artist, musician, and performer. What you may not know, unless you've been around these parts for some years, is she's also a New Thought songwriter and has written some of our favorite songs. So today, all of our music, just about all of our music, is going to be Cathryn McGill tunes. I know, I'm really excited. Because, as I got to thinking about, the stress I was feeling about the times we are moving into and, this bizarre launching point we're going to be all sharing in tomorrow, I was really thinking about, what really is the antidote to catastrophic fear and worry. And it's love. It's always love, right? That's always the thing. And so one of the things I was thinking about in preparing for today is I want to show Miss McGill some love, because one of the things I know as I get older is I want my flowers now. Don't be saving flowers for me for when I'm gone. So I want to give Kathy some flowers today. So we're going to celebrate her music, celebrate the incredible fierce advocacy that she stands for in this community for so many, uncountable. Yes. And I believe that's going to set us on a good foot heading into tomorrow, yes? In the next 100 days, yes? Let us launch from love. Let us ground ourselves in love. That is what we are going to be up to today. I want to just say good afternoon, evening, wherever it is, to this Albuquerque Center for Spiritual Living family. I really love each and every one of you. And this church means a lot to me. I spent much of my weekend on the couch thinking about what I wanted to share with you today. And my spirit just told me that mostly I just needed to stand here and affirm for myself and for you that everything's going to be all right. Right? I did manage to get up off the couch one time this weekend, and I went to a karaoke night at a local establishment, and one of the patrons chose the song, Everything's All Right, from Jesus Christ Superstar. And in a reprise of the song, in the musical Mary Magdalene, she sings Jesus to sleep right before Judas Iscariot betrays him. And the words say, try not to get worried. Try not to turn on the problems that upset you. Oh, don't you know? Everything's going to be all right. Everything is fine. It's been a while since I had the privilege of speaking to you. I believe it was right before Martin Luther King Jr. Day celebration, just after my girlfriend, Reverend Amati, who also drives me crazy,
just right before she became the senior minister of this church. And fast forward, that was like in 2018 we just decided. And so you fast forward to 2025, it's hard to believe it's been that long ago. She's been here for 7 years, and here I am again, right before MLK Jr. Day celebration that falls on Inauguration Day for the 47th President of the United States of America. America is very clearly divided, overtly divided, about the direction this country should take. And each one of us has a role to play, whether we know it or not, in shaping that direction. There's a lot going on, but there always is, and there always has been. In every era, there exists a spirit, a zeitgeist, if you will, that defines the times. It's a force that shapes how we live, how we move, how we respond to the world around us. Roberta Flack wrote a tune that sums up what we see happening around us right now. When she said mother against daughter, father against son, the whole thing, she said, is getting out of hand. Right now, we stand in a world marked by chaos and transformation, yet rooted in unshakable, the legacy of resilience. It's an interesting dichotomy, that rigid contrast between chaos and transformation, and I'm choosing to explain it by using the phrase, in spite of and because of. Today's thesis is that in spite of each of our individual and collective trials, and because of the triumphs of our ancestors, we are here. And there has never been a time such as this, to serve beyond these walls. In Roberta Flack's prescription for dealing with trying times, she remembered that somebody said, "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you." And she went on to say that all we need is just a little more love for each other. Mary Magdalene said, "Everything's all right." Roberta Flack said, "All we need is a little more love." And yet we find ourselves in the midst of a country ravaged by hatred and division. What is we gonna do about it? What is we gonna do about it? Here's what I think. I have to go back to my ancestors, many of whom were denied their humanity, whose names may be forgotten by history, but are remembered in our hearts, who called to us today. You didn't know my grandfather, Julius Cleveland Brackeen. But I remember the words that he stood up and said every morning. I was young, and now I am old. Yet I have never seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. He mowed lawns for a living. Today they might call him a landscape architect, but he mowed lawns for a living. But in the church, he got up every Sunday morning and he used to sing a charge to keep I have, a God to glorify. Their spirit is embedded in our DNA. I remember his words, and our ancestors endured hardships we can hardly fathom. Chains, whips, separation and pain. Yet they dreamed of us. They didn't know our names, but they knew our prayers. They prayed for freedom, for dignity, for a better future, and we, beloved, are the embodiment of those prayers. Take, for example, Harriet Tubman, who made over a dozen trips to free enslaved people through the Underground Railroad. In spite of the danger, because of her unyielding belief in freedom, she persevered. Or think about the wisdom of Frederick Douglass, who taught himself to read and write in the face of laws that prohibited, said, "You can't read, you can't write." But in spite of a system designed to keep him ignorant because of his thirst for knowledge, he became one of the greatest voices for justice in our history. The spirit of these times, the zeitgeist, demands that we remember the connection to our ancestors. It demands that we pause, reflect, and realize that we are because they were. Their resilience courses through our veins, and their dreams can, and perhaps I could say should, guide our actions. We talk about resilience as if it's a choice. But for our ancestors, it was a mandate. They did not have the luxury of giving up. They are not like some people. It's like, well, I just don't feel like adulting today. In spite of oppression, they built communities. In spite of hatred, they loved fiercely. Roberta Flack said, we just need a little more love. In spite of limitations, they triumphed. Because of their resilience, we have opportunities they could only dream about or imagine. Rosa Parks sat down so we could stand up. Actually, Claudette Colvin was the first person to refuse to give up her seat. She's still alive, by the way. But Rosa Parks is the name we know. There are countless others. Martin Luther King Jr. marched so we could walk through doors that were once closed to us. In spite of the threats, the dogs, and the fire hoses, they kept moving, pushing forward. Ella Jo Baker and Bayard Rustin were two of the masterminds and the principal architects of the civil rights movement, but Martin Luther King Jr. is the name we know. Because of all their sacrifices, we can vote, we can work, and we can live with the semblance of the dignity they fought for. And so resilience is not just a legacy, it's our inheritance. It is what allows us to rise every day in a world that can feel and perhaps is so incredibly heavy. We are called to embody that same spirit, to fight, to endure, to rise, not because it's easy. Sure enough, it ain't easy, but it's necessary. We have a responsibility to carry this legacy forward. Resilience alone is not enough. That may be hard to hear, but it's not enough. Our ancestors didn't sacrifice so we could merely survive. They sacrificed so we could thrive. That means we can't wait for somebody else to come and fix it. We can't wait for them to fix what's broken. We can't wait for the world to align perfectly before we act. Well, son, I'll tell you, life for me ain't been no crystal stair. It's had tacks in it, and splinters, and boards torn up, and places with no carpet on the floor, bare. But all the time I've been climbing on and reaching landings and turning corners and sometimes going in the dark where there ain't been no light. So boy, don't you turn back. Don't you sit down on them steps because you find it kind of hard. Don't you fall now, for I still going, honey. I still climbing. And life, for me, ain't been no crystal stair. Mother to Son, the poem I just read was written in 1922 by Harlem Renaissance poet Langston Hughes and was published in the NAACP's Crisis magazine. Hughes' writings in the early 20th century were authentic social commentary that often highlighted the resilience, hope, and determination of Black people navigating the trials of systemic oppression and poverty. The message aligns with the ethos of that old Timex watch commercial. I'm going to date myself now, but do y'all remember when it said Timex takes a licking and keeps on ticking? So we must all do the same. And truthfully, even if it looks like it is, nobody's life is truly a crystal stair. Not when you look closely. Even those who seem to glide effortlessly, who have billions of dollars, and they seem to glide effortlessly through life, often carry burdens hidden from view. Facing struggles that money, privilege, or power cannot erase. The human condition ensures that we all encounter heartbreak, fear, and failure at some point. The difference is how we face those moments, whether we stumble and fall and decide to quit, or whether we rise and climb. I still climbing. Life's beauty lies not in perfection, but in the resilience we find amidst its imperfections. Enter Fannie Lou Hamer, a civil rights luminary you may or may not know. Born in 1917, Hamer was growing up in the Deep South under the harsh realities of sharecropping and systemic racism during the time Hughes was rising as one of the voices of the Harlem Renaissance. The struggles Hughes articulated in 1922 when Hamer was just 5 years old, poverty, perseverance, and determination to rise above adversity, literally mirror the challenges that Hamer and many others face. Fannie Lou Hamer's life embodied personal resilience and personal responsibility. But her story doesn't begin in triumph. In fact, it begins very solidly in struggle. And that's what makes it so powerful. What Fannie Lou Hamer teaches us is that sometimes it's in spite of the weight of the world pressing down on us that we rise. And sometimes it's because of that very weight that we discover our purpose. Fannie Lou Townsend was the youngest of 20 children. Her parents were sharecroppers, scraping a living out of soil that was not theirs, that they could never own, bound to a system that wasn't designed to let them thrive. Does that sound familiar? Systems that are not designed to allow us to thrive. By the age of 6, Fannie Lou was picking cotton alongside her family. Her hands, her little 6-year-old hands, were already raw. Her spirit was already acquainted with sacrifice at 6 years old. But there was something special about Fannie Lou Hamer. She was a fighter from the beginning. Even in the shadows of segregation and Jim Crow, she had a voice, a great, bold, clear singing voice and speaking voice that refused to stay silent. Somewhere deep inside of her, in her DNA, she knew, and she told us, nobody's free until everybody is free. And she would later declare, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, a phrase that became the anthem for her life. So to ask you the question, are you sick and tired of being sick and tired? I'm gonna raise both my hands. What's that song Marvin Gaye said? Sometimes it makes me want to raise both my hands and holler. I'm gonna raise both of my hands and I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. But before Fannie Lou Hamer could speak those words, she had to learn what it meant to endure. She had to learn what it meant to fight and to hope in the face of literal despair. It wasn't until she was in her 40s that Fannie Lou Hamer found her true calling. One day, while attending a meeting hosted by the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, founded by Ella Jo Baker, she heard about the right to vote. Now, she had spent her entire life being told that she wasn't worth much. She was told that by society, by laws, by the very land that her raw hands were required to work. But that night, something awakened in her when she went to that meeting, and it was like the universe and the Spirit of God reached down and whispered, "This is why I made you." Can you imagine what she must have felt that day when she knew that she knew that she knew that she knew that she knew this, what I'm doing right here, is why God made me. And so Fannie Lou Hamer, a woman who had barely finished the 6th grade, a woman who had been sterilized by a white doctor without her consent, by a system that deemed her unworthy in Mississippi to bear children, decided she was going to register to vote and encourage others to do so as well. Can you imagine the audacity? In 1962, a black woman in Mississippi walking into a courthouse to claim her rightful place, to say, "I want to vote." It was as if she was daring the very foundations of injustice to shake, and shake they did. Her decision came with a cost. That same year, Fannie Lou was fired from her job on the plantation. She was beaten, harassed, and threatened. She was arrested and brutally assaulted in jail. Her body left bruised and broken, but she did not quit. "Is this America?" she would later ask. "The land of the free and the home of the brave, where we have to sleep with our telephones off the hooks because our lives be threatened daily? Is this America?" There's a lesson in that question. Fannie Lou Hamer wasn't just calling out the hypocrisy of America. She was reminding us that resilience isn't about avoiding pain. It's about pressing on in spite of the pain. It's about refusing to let the darkness extinguish our light. I still climbing. But here's the beautiful part. Fannie Lou Hamer didn't just survive. She did as our ancestors dreamed. She actually thrived. She was living in her purpose. She co-founded the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, challenging the all-white delegation at the 1964 Democratic National Convention. She sang hymns like, "This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine." She sang those hymns as a weapon against fear, turning her pain into power. And she gave voice to countless others who had been silenced. Her life is proof that sometimes it is because of our struggles that we find our strength. Had she not faced those trials, she might never have discovered her purpose. And had she not taken responsibility for her role in the fight for justice, the world might never have known her name. Fannie Lou Hamer's story is more than just history. It's a charge to each of us, like William has told us and said that I'm not going to wait for the world to change before I act. She didn't let her fear, her pain, or her injustice keep her silent. And she didn't allow her circumstances to determine her destiny. So what about you, beloveds? What weight are you carrying today? What challenges are you facing in spite of the odds? Where is your courage? And what might God be calling you to do because of those challenges? Remember, resilience isn't just about surviving the storm. Resilience is about learning to dance in the rain. And as Fannie Lou Hamer showed us, sometimes the greatest victories come not in spite of our struggles, but because of them. I can hear you thinking, I ain't no Fannie Lou Hamer. Well, I suggest to you that Fannie Lou Hamer wasn't Fannie Lou Hamer until she became Fannie Lou Hamer. Do what you can with what you have, where you are, for as long as you can. We get caught in the enormity of the work ahead of us. We think about systemic change and forget that systems change when individuals commit to doing the work. Your actions matter. Your voice matters. Your commitment today matters. A man walked along the beach, throwing stranded starfish back into the ocean. You know the story. Several people came along and told him to stop, and people will tell you to stop when you're on purpose in your life. They'll say, oh, no, you can't do that. You can't possibly save them all, they told him. What you're doing doesn't matter, they told him. And he simply replied, it matters to this one, as he threw another starfish back into the ocean. Every action we take, no matter how small, ripples outward for change. So on this eve of MLK Day and the inauguration of the 47th President of the United States of America, I just want to say, I really came by to say, I got up off my couch to say, everything's going to be all right. I'll need you to remind me when I forget, and I'll do the same for you. I recall Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s words, I have decided to stick with love. Hate is too great a burden to bear. Love, beloved, is the key to it all. Roberta Flack said it too. All we need is a little more love for each other. But these are trying times. Division is not new to America. In many ways, it has defined this nation. The nation was born of division. But it is not division that will define our future. It is our collective will to rise above it, in spite of the chaos and adversity. And because of the rich inheritance of hope, resilience, and dreams bequeathed to us by our ancestors, we are called to act. We will rise as one community committed to justice. Let me hear you say yeah. Yeah. Committed to love. Let me hear you say yes. Yeah. And committed to the hard, beautiful work of creating a future worthy of those who came before us. Let me hear you say yes. And most importantly, to those who will follow. Everybody said yes. Yes. This is our call. To rise in spite of and because of. Ashe. And so it is.